Dong-hyuk Shin, by virtue of the authority vested in me and in Dalhousie University, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
If there is a face of North Korea's human rights atrocities, Shin Dong-hyuk is it. He's been celebrated around the world last May at Dalhousie University for surviving and escaping North Korea's gulag. It's a story he told the Fifth Estate in 2013.
I wasn't even a person per se, not a human being. I was an animal. That's what I feel I was in the camp.
The camp Shin claimed he'd been born into is reputedly one of North Korea's worst, Camp 14. The son of political prisoners, he said, he recalled harrowing tales of hunger and abuse. With no way to verify his claims, we illustrated his stories. Children who stole food and were beaten to death. The public execution of his own mother and brother for planning an escape killed, Shin told us, after he ratted them out to camp authorities. Did you feel anything?
저도 무서웠죠. I was just scared that they still might tie me up at the side of my mother. That was pretty much what I was thinking at the time.
He was only 14 at the time, he said, and rather than the reward he thought he'd get for his betrayal, he says he was tortured.
They shackled me up by my legs, and then they hung me upside down, and they tortured me with a fire. I don't like to think about it anymore.
A few years later, he claimed to do something no North Korean prisoner has ever done. He says he escaped Camp 14, climbing over a fellow inmate as he lay dying on an electric fence. Shin's story was first told in a book. Escape from Camp 14 was an international bestseller, and Shin became the poster boy for human rights abuses in North Korea, retelling his story around the world, leveraging his celebrity to convince world leaders to get tough with the North Korean regime. Last year, he became the first witness to testify at a UN Commission of Inquiry.
And the statements attributed to you in this book are true and accurate.
A commission that is now pushing for North Korea to be tried at the International Criminal Court. So you can imagine, after all of that, how surprising it was last month when the poster boy posted he'd be disappearing for a while. It didn't take long for the world to learn why. After years of telling the same story, Shin was admitting not all of it was true. The man who launched a movement had been exposed as a liar. That prompted us to go looking for answers in South Korea, home to tens of thousands of other defectors. Here, there'd always been whispered questions about Shin's story. But then last October, something that gave questions substance. It was a video, crudely propagandistic, produced, it seemed, by North Korea.
When I saw the video clip on TV, I saw someone I knew.
The person Kim Hae-suk recognized was a man who claimed to be Shin's father. Not from Camp 14, but Camp 18, where Kim had spent 28 years. A decade later, she remembers every detail of the place. A prison camp, yes, but less repressive, she says, run by North Korea's police, not the dreaded security service. Indeed, the story the man tells is quite different than Shin's. Far from growing up starving, the boy he calls In-gun was a healthy child whose mother and brother were executed, but not for trying to escape. They'd been convicted of killing a woman, he says, a story Kim remembers too.
There were many public executions at Camp 18. Shin's mother and his brother Shin Hee-kun were brought out for a murder case.
As she points out, she has nothing to gain by corroborating the North Korean video. Nevertheless, she believes it.
Shin's father is right. Shin has lied about everything.
Before he disappeared, Shin admitted the man in the video was his father and that most of his life had indeed been spent in Camp 18. The torture he told us about didn't happen as a teenager, he now says, but years later, punishment for an escape attempt that failed. But even that doesn't ring true to Chung Kwon-il. He's a defector who spent years helping other camp survivors, all of whom won their freedom through release.
Since I lived in North Korea, I know for a fact it is impossible to escape from the camp. So I didn't believe him from the beginning.
For the last 2 months, Chung has been doing his own research. The man Shin claims died on the electric fence, Chung has been told was actually killed in a mining accident. He's now convinced there never was an escape. More likely, Shin was simply released from Camp 18 when North Korea shut it down.
I personally see it this way. He did not escape from Camp 14, and it's true he had a rough time at Camp 18. But he wanted to claim himself as a political prisoner and become famous.
I was very disappointed.
For human rights campaigners like David Hawk, it's all come as a bit of a shock. But he's not writing Shin or his story off yet.
Those inaccuracies do not detract at all from what we know about how the camps operated.
But it does give North Korea's leaders a way to discredit their opponents and scare off others who might speak out. To defectors, that video of Shin's father is chilling.
That scares the bejesus, to put it crudely, out of the other refugees who are now fearful that if they provide testimony, if they speak out, North Korea will go after their family members who remain in the North.
It will cause big confusion. Now, whoever says something, there's a bit of room for others to believe that the stories could be false. Shin was trusted, but it ended up being all lies. And now I could also be criticized for telling lies.
Shin has admitted he did tell lies. The world now awaits his explanation why.